Good afternoon. If you happen to be in a time zone where it's afternoon, I'm Rudy Maxa, travel journalist. And if this is the first time you're joining me for this every Thursday webcast, this began out of my desire when COVID-19 struck to actually talk to people longer than the 6 or 7 minutes I get to talk to them on my weekend radio show. And so over the last, 7 months or so, I've endeavored to find people, many Americans, some around the world, to talk about travel. My guest is Deborah Mace. You can see her in the postage stamp size picture there. She is a New York-based model, but she is from France, as you'll know as soon as she speaks. She's got 81,000 followers on Instagram. And if you're not on Instagram and think that's not a big number, I have 3,000. I'm 81,000 is an impossible mountain to climb for me. She'll probably add another 1,000 when this gets posted on YouTube. At any rate, we're going to talk to her about being a model and traveling around the world because there is a stereotype about models, whether they're women or men, that they live this incredibly wonderful life because they're always, looking gorgeous in photographs, obviously. But they're always flying to Milan and to Paris and to Tokyo and Hong Kong, and they're drinking champagne. And you think, do these people ever sleep? We're going to talk to Deborah about that. But first, as you know, I generally like to start with a bottle of wine and talk about the region. Deborah her family is from Aix-en-Provence. And I should have gotten a Provençal wine, but I didn't have time because I've been traveling a lot and didn't have time to get to a wine store. And I just moved, and I have literally 160 cases of wine in this apartment, and I don't know where the stuff from Provence is. But I got a Chablis from Burgundy. You're familiar with Chablis, Deborah? Yes.
Yes.
You said it's one of your favorite wines.
Yes.
Chablis is a white wine, and Chablis. Deborah, you may be too. I'll show you the bottle in a minute. You may be too young to remember, but there was a period where Chablis was considered the white wine, the international wine to drink in America. And then as Americans got a little more sophisticated about wines from around the world, Chablis became sort of like Pepsi Cola. It was, I don't want a Chablis, because California was marketing Chablis that don't really resemble the Chablis from France, where the grape is prominent. So if you are listening to me now and going, a Chablis, are we bringing back Chablis? They never went away in France. And their sales diminished sharply in the United States, but French Chablis is a wonder to behold. I don't know if you know this. There aren't a lot of houses in Chablis. It's in, even though it's its own appellation, it's in the Burgundy region of France. But if you go to visit Burgundy, particularly the two parts of Burgundy three parts actually that serve red wine. Chablis is actually, about a 45-minute drive away from that region. This is the bottle. It's a very plain bottle. It's from a house called Domaine Besson, Besson. In the course of this conversation with Miss Mace, she will correct my French repeatedly, as I've asked her to do, because as anyone who even watched my TV shows on France knows, when I'm in France, I have a hard time mimicking the accent. But let me just try a little bit of Chablis. Chablis is always white, and there are very few Grand Crus. In France there are these gradations of wine, with Grand Cru being. How do you pronounce it, Miss May? Say it again.
Grand Cru.
Grand Cru, right? Like something stuck in the back of your throat. So the Grand Cru is the highest designation, the official designation that it is determined by the terroir, the soil the grapes are grown in, certainly the history of the wine and the taste of the wine. And then there's something called Premier Cru, joked on it, which is first cru, and to Americans, first cru. And that's usually lower down on a slope. And then there's Village, and then there's everyday drinking wine. But anyway, Chablis, unlike the part of Burgundy that grows the Pinot Noir, which is all the red of Burgundy is Pinot Noir grapes. Unlike there, where there are quite a number of Grand Cru wineries, there's really only one Grand Cru region in Chablis with several vintners. This is one of them, but this is not a Grand Cru. This vintner, Domaine Besson, makes about 6 different kinds of white, including a Grand Cru, a Premier Cru, and what other kind of names? He's got the vintner has all kinds of names as well for his particular domain. He's got it's just different wines based on what vineyard the grapes came from. So I'm going to taste it. It will taste nothing like a California one. It's a beautiful color. This is a 2015, by the way. You can age white wine, contrary to what some Americans think, that you have to drink it right away. White wine will change over the years. This will get a little more golden if it was 10 or 15 years older. And this is a gorgeous region, probably about an hour and 45-minute drive out of Paris. And you can visit Chablis, but like many vineyards in France, you can't go knock on the door of a vineyard and expect to find yourself a fancy tasting room selling keychains and aprons with logos on it and sandwiches to eat outside on picnic tables. You will find a farmer generally who will look at you like, I got work to do. What are you doing here? And you say, well, I really enjoyed the Domaine Boisson wine and I'd like to buy some. And they go, well, there's a wine store down the street. So if you visit Chablis, which is a beautiful, beautiful slice of land, gentle hills, a main road going through it, you can certainly taste a number of Chablis that you would not be able to taste in the United States, and it's worth a visit. So there's my pitch for Chablis. I expect that Chablis growers everywhere will be sending me cases of this wine. No one ever does. I wish they did. Let's, if you don't, if you've missed any of our interviews, or if you hear something during this interview you would like to send to friends, you can always follow me on YouTube. Just go to SavTrav49 and you'll see our shows, or just type in Rudy Maxa. And Deborah Mace, for example, today. This will be posted probably in about 24 hours. If you just type in Rudy Maxa and Deborah Mace, it will come up and you can send it along to friends or watch it again if you'd like. Deborah, nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Should I tell the story of how we met?
I think, yes, you should.
If you received my newsletter last week, I told it in abbreviated form, but let me start it this way. Have you ever been on a flight? I'm speaking to the audience here, where you sat next to someone you can't wait for the flight to end because of? I certainly have. I've had some characters. I've had some interesting characters. I've had some boring, dull characters. I've had somebody who wants to talk the whole time when I would like to sleep or read a book. And I was going on a flight to France to see my daughter in the Bordeaux region of France. And my girlfriend at the time was supposed to be with me in the seat next to me. It was two seats together in premium economy on Delta, I think. And 2 weeks before going to leave, she broke up with me. Heartless thing that she is. And so I wondered, all right, who's going to sit next to me? And I kept dreaming it was going to be an insurance salesman taking her seat who would spend the entire trip across the Atlantic trying to sell me a whole life insurance policy. And in waltzes Deborah Mace, who sits next to me, and she's in the window and I'm in the aisle, so she crosses over. And of course, she's, as you would expect a model to be, very attractive. And I tried to pay her no attention because I didn't want to seem like some guy who was going to talk to her all the way and try to get her phone number at the end of the trip. But I think around mealtime, we did start chatting. And I told her, I wondered who was going to sit here, because it was supposed to be my girlfriend who broke up with me 2 weeks ago. And she said, what did you tell me, Deborah?
I had just I was in the middle of a breakup too.
And you were going home to see some family in Aix-en-Provence?
Yes.
So there we were, both who had been dating people who clearly were not worth our time. And I say that with tongue in cheek in case Leslie's listening. But we were both sort of brokenhearted. And so I think we spent a lot of time over the meal talking about how cruel boyfriends and girlfriends can be when they don't realize how terrific we are. So I wanted to talk to Deborah about traveling internationally, or traveling generally as a model. First of all, Deborah, how did you become a model? Because the stories, when you read about models, they seem to be as different as there are people.
Yeah, and that's true. We all have very different stories. Actually, modeling wasn't something I was planning on doing. It's not something that ever crossed my mind. I was in college. I wanted to become a lawyer at the time. And my boyfriend at the time, when we first met, asked me if I was a model. And I said no. And what he did was sending pictures of me to agencies in New York. Now,
where were you going to school at the time, and where were you with this boyfriend? Where were you living?
Florida.
Florida.
So I went to college in Florida, yeah, in Miami.
Now, did he know anything about modeling agents or anything?
I mean, he had encountered models, and I'm tall and skinny, and people assume right away that you model. So he basically sent pictures to whatever contacts he had. And when agencies in New York called me back and said they wanted to meet me in person, I was very surprised. So I kind of just flew to New York, to get to just talk to them and see what they had to say. And they all offered me a contract. But at the time, I was like, oh, modeling, like not eating and just like taking care of my body is really not something I want to do. So I decided that I would start modeling in Miami. So I signed with Elite. I flew back to Miami and I started modeling. But I really thought it was just going to be a side job. I wasn't expecting it to turn into a career.
And where were you at school at the time? I mean, had you graduated, or were you a senior or junior?
I went to FIU, Florida International University.
And what year?
Major to marketing after, because modeling was crazy. I started traveling the world, so it felt like it was a wiser decision to change major.
Let me just correct one thing. You said, when you're tall and skinny, people presume you're a model. When I was in college, when I graduated, I was tall and skinny, and nobody thought I was a model. I can assure you. But so when you started modeling in Florida, you sort of considered, well, I can make a little money on the side. Maybe this is a hobby, because I've got to go be a lawyer or whatever.
Yeah, basically, nobody in my family, I knew nothing about modeling really. So I signed that contract and I was like, okay, great. So now we take pictures and see if I can make a living out of it. So very fast, within 6 months, I realized, oh my God, this is actually taking all of my time. But yeah, I really thought it was just going to be a side job, going to school and modeling on the side, which I did, but it turned out to be really, really difficult once the traveling started.
Now, I said you were from France, but you were at quite a young age when you moved to Florida with your parents, correct?
Correct. So I grew up in Aix-en-Provence, actually near Aix-en-Provence, in a very small town. I am not from a big city, quite the farms, to be frank. And I moved to Boca Raton, Florida when I was 15.
Oh, 18. I thought it was younger.
15.
15.
Yes.
15. Okay, sorry. And did you speak English when you arrived here at 15?
Well, I thought I did because I had good grades in school, but I realized I did not speak English at all. My first class was biology, and I sit down in school. I was a junior, and I realized I did not understand anything. So, and my teacher was from Georgia, so he had a southern accent that was even more difficult for me to understand. Right. And at that time, I just grabbed my head and I was like, oh my God, there's no way I can go through school. There's no way I can do this.
But you did. So you're saying that your career modeling in Florida took off fairly quickly.
Yes.
Did you take any modeling lessons?
No. So I don't know what it is. I've always done a lot of acting, and I believe that one of the reasons why I was able to have a career, my career got started pretty fast, is because I had the performance experience. I knew what it was like to be on stage, and to me, modeling is very similar to acting in some ways. You get to the shoot, and the client has a very specific idea of how they want to sell their product. And as a model, I come in, I listen to that, and I try to sell the products the way they want me to. So there's a lot of marketing into it, where at least I always saw it as way more than just looking pretty on a picture. There's so many people behind the picture you see. There's so much thought behind how you're styled and how it's shot and the lighting, everything truly. So I believe it's because of the acting and the fact that I took it as a business instead of looking at it as just, be pretty on a picture. And
a chance to get invited to parties.
Oh yeah, but this is not something that I've ever liked.
Well, that's why I was saying that you didn't look at it as, oh, this is the way I can get invited to parties. You saw it as a job.
Absolutely, yes. No.
You were talking about acting and bringing that to it, and it occurred to me, we'll talk about traveling in a minute, because this is a travel webinar or webcast, excuse me. But it seems to me, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I wasn't reading grown-up magazines. It seems to me that when I was in my 20s or even younger, that every time you saw a model in an advertisement, he or she was happy, smiling. And now you open up the New York Times Sunday Magazine or GQ, and you have, big name designers, or at least the companies that own the names of the big designers, posing models, and sometimes they're pouting, sometimes they're looking mad at you, sometimes they look like they're going to jump off the page and, you know, bite your head off. Is that a function of what you were talking about? The client saying, this is the look, we're looking for edgy, or not, we don't want you being sunny and happy, Deborah? Or is that something you bring to the shoot?
No, truly the client knows what they want. I mean, when you shoot a tutorial, anything that's very fashion, usually they want character and they want a story behind the picture. And so, of course, there's some of that you're mentioning, but truly the clients, they have an idea of what they want, and it's for us, you know, to reflect that, to do what they need us to do. I mean, we get paid for that. You know, we're a marketing tool at the end of the day. So we have to do whatever the client, even though I have to say, some shoots, the clients thought they had an idea what they wanted. And then once you get to the shoot, you kind of go with the flow. And then they're like, oh, you know what? I like that. That works better. That also happens. But yeah, the whole like modeling, and you're just like, yeah, this is like a trend. It's again, you want to look at a photo and think of the story behind. And if you're just, if you're just like that, you know, there's nothing, you know, like you have to make people who look at the photo feel something. Okay. At least we try.
We have a comment, a couple comments from Jahazil. I think I'm pronouncing his or her name correctly. Chablis wines are made from a single variety, Chardonnay. That's true. It's a Burgundy wine, but nearer to Sancerre. You're right. He also said, Leslie called. That's my former girlfriend who broke up with me before we met. Said, Leslie called. She no longer drinks Chablis. Very funny, Jazil. Very funny. At any rate, okay, so when did you start traveling when you started modeling in Miami? And was it traveling to New York, mainly domestic travel? And what kind of modeling? I know you do bathing suits, you do lingerie, but you also do dresses and clothing. And so give me the evolution of both your modeling style and your traveling.
The traveling started right away. The Miami market is a very small market, so most clients that get Miami models are from Latin America. So I traveled a lot, mostly to Colombia, which, by the way, is one of my favorite countries in the world. And then always Germany, a very hot spot I used to go to a lot. Ironically, France wasn't so much a place I was going. I think French people were like, we don't want French models or something. I don't know. So yeah, I started traveling nonstop, and then it really got crazy. And yeah, domestic travel as well, but mostly New York, LA, and sometimes location shoots, you know, in Charlotte or, you know, in different places, but mostly the Triangle, Miami, New York, LA.
And all these bookings were coming through one agency or multiple agencies?
So I was with Elite for 10 years. I'm still with Elite Miami right now, but now I am with New York Models. Right,
you live in New York now, exactly. And did you tell me about the evolution of what kind of modeling you did? I mean, did you start doing bathing suit lingerie, or did you?
It was always very different. I don't think I was just a lingerie model or swimsuit model. I did a lot of swimsuit. I did Miami Swim Week, but honestly, I did a lot of catalog overall. But I shot very different styles over the years. Yeah, it wasn't, I wouldn't say it's one thing only. Like I had a phase where I was doing a lot of fitness, and then it kind of stopped. And then, you know, I think I did a little bit of everything.
And did you, I just forgot my question. Oh, have you ever been approached about, or have you done a movie or videos or any of that?
I did 2 TV shows. I had very small parts, but it was some of the best experiences I've had. And then TV commercials, I've done a few. And
would you like to do more acting?
Sorry?
Would you like to do more acting?
Yeah, so I did acting for a couple of years, and I was auditioning nonstop. But the problem that kept coming up was my accent. So I had to do a lot of accent reduction classes, which I like to call them accent extermination class, because they really want you to turn off your accent. And that started to become a problem for me, because I felt like it was so the reasons why I fell in love with acting is because of the storytelling, and you can't really ignore the tool that is your body and your voice. So it felt very paradoxical for me to be in love with an art and a business that was telling me that I wasn't good enough because I was French, or because I didn't sound like they wanted me to.
Can you do an American accent?
I think if I really try to, I can do better, but I can still hear my. Yeah, I tend to sound like I'm from California.
You nailed it.
Thank you.
You nailed it. How do I know you're even really French, for God's sakes?
Comes out very fast. Like I can talk for just a little bit, and then eventually there's a word, especially like with the E and the U. There's just some sounds like you're like, oh God, you're French.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's complaining about that. Jahazil, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, is a man, he tells me. And he asks, what is the impact of the COVID virus on your day-to-day modeling? In other words, is everybody wearing a mask before the moment you're shot on the crew and so on? It's
completely changed. So we were off for 3 months, and then I went back to work in June, and we had medics on set. Everybody's wearing a mask, and makeup artists have a mask and a face shield. And the models, because we have makeup, we cannot wear a mask, obviously, to go on set, but you really have to stay away from each other up until you're on set. So it was it's just completely different. Like, it has nothing to do, I mean, the whole energy of the set and the connection between people is gone at this, at this moment. But I'm happy to be working, and there's no more traveling though.
Really?
No.
Well, are jobs coming back though? I mean, are you getting more work now than you did in April, May, and June, July?
Finally, it's starting. It's not like before. And a lot of my clients were either abroad or, in different states. And up until, I believe, a month ago, you needed to put yourself in quarantine if you were getting out of the New York state. That is no longer the case as long as you come back with a negative test. But that's the reason why, so many jobs disappeared. It's just, can you imagine 15 days without working is just, it's just too much. So working in New York and making the best out of it. And last week I had my first job outside, actually on Tuesday, outside New York. I was just in Boston, before and after. And I'm happy that is now a rule, because.
How did you get to Boston? Did you take the train? Did you drive? Did you fly?
I flew. I didn't even know what flying was like anymore. It was very stressful to go to the airport.
Well, I've been flying a lot the last couple of weeks, much more than any time in the last 6 months, 7 months. But most of the airports are empty when I'm flying. Didn't you find that?
I have to say, I've never loved LaGuardia so much in my life. The airport, I was like, wow, it's actually the first time I'm actually enjoying being here. I like the emptiness. It feels safe to travel, to be honest. Everything's so clean. You get into the plane, it feels like clean. Yeah. I mean, I travel with Delta, and there's no one seated next to you. So it felt good. Again, I haven't been traveling so much, so you have more experience than me as far as.
Well, just the last couple of weeks, I've been traveling a little crazily. And but when pre-COVID, how many times a week did you get on a plane?
Oof. It depends. When I lived in Miami, I was on a plane at least once a week. But I would go, or sometimes it would go 2 to 3 times. But then when I moved to New York, there's just so many jobs in New York. You don't have to travel as much. So I would say at least once every 2 weeks.
Okay. And I know from looking at your Instagram page that you have shot in some gorgeous locations, some very exotic locations. Which ones stand out in your mind?
Oh my God. And now I feel so grateful that I got to travel so much because of my job. I used to complain about it, and now I regret complaining about it. Like, we have to take nothing for granted. Some of my favorite places. So I shot in Santorini, Greece, which blew my mind of the beauty. And then some kind of places that you would never think of. I flew It was a crazy travel day though, but I had a shoot on a small island in Sweden, and that was absolutely magical because an island where I had never seen, and the people were so different. I think the best part of my job is the blending in with different cultures and different people. And then Argentina, I shot in La Pampa, in the middle of La Pampa, and that was absolutely incredible because again, I'm here taking pictures and I get to see things I would have never guessed. I would have never said, oh, I mean, if anything, I would have said, I want to go to Buenos Aires, you know, and then tango. I don't think I would have been like, oh, I'm going to drive 3 hours into La Pampa and go in the middle of nowhere and stay in the ranch. And that's what I did. So that was incredible. Lots of islands. I mean,
I know you shot in France. I've seen pictures of you in front of various French iconic buildings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But funny enough, I was only going to France to see my family for a while, and then I signed a friendly agency in last year, actually, and so I spent a lot of time in Paris because I did not know Paris before.
Because you were a country girl.
I need to get to know freaking Paris because, first of all, people think of France, they only think of Paris. It's like, oh, you're from France or you're Parisian? No. But I started feeling guilty. I was like, God, like I need to go and visit Paris. So I signed with an agency there, and I got to shoot in Paris, and I got to spend time there. And it's amazing.
It's very funny to hear a woman with the French accent you have saying Paris is amazing.
I know, but guess what? I have an accent from the south of France. So when I'm in Paris, they know that I'm not Parisian, and I don't get the best treatment. So Parisians are tough cookies. I still love them though. They grow on you.
Yes. Yeah. I think Paris has a bad reputation for, I will agree that Parisians are a bit shorter in, a little less helpful sometimes than anybody else in any other part of France. But generally they come through. And even with I've never taken a French course in my life, but because I spent a lot of time in Paris as a kid, because my parents went there, we lived in Germany and we went there a lot. And my father, Deborah, when I was like 11 years old, when he'd have meetings, I remember one winter day, it's snowing here in St. Paul. It was snowing there in Paris. It was very cold. And he dropped me off at a bridge in downtown Paris, at 9 in the morning. He said, I'll be back here at 5 to pick you up. Here's 20 francs. Have a great time. And that's how a kid learns to at least know how to order food, get a table in a restaurant, say no, thank you, or hello, and all the basic stuff. Greg Cash says Parisians are like New Yorkers. That's true. New Yorkers are very, very kind. I mean, I lived in New York a long time, but before that I visited and I thought, oh my gosh, New York, coming from Washington, D.C., New York was so huge. And in fact, everybody was very, very helpful. Here's a more serious question. Gisele's got all these questions. How many French lovers of music still listen to Edith Piaf? I think everybody does. But another question is the question of eating disorders in the modeling industry. Is that still an issue, or have young women particularly become a little more educated on that and a little smarter about it? So
I have to say I've seen it. I've seen it around. I know it's still, it's something that still happens. But as far as my experience, I did not. I remember when I first signed, one of the first things I told my bookers were, listen, guys, if I understand well, you want to make money. Okay, so this is how it's going to go. We're going to work together. I'm going to do the best job I can possibly can with the way I look. And I'm going to, maintain how I look and feel healthy. But I do not want to be told a certain weight I need to be and certain measurements. And if you don't make money, then you can come at me and say, okay, you know what? It's because you're to this or to that and to this and to that. So because I set the rules from the start, I never had to encounter any type of I've always felt healthy, and nobody kind of said anything about the way I looked, and I wouldn't have accepted anyway. But I've seen around some friends, especially when I used to stay in the model's apartment, when I first started modeling, I would fly to New York, and I had, very little money. So I would stay in the apartments of the agency. And I have seen you know, girls restricting what they were eating, and definitely some disorders. I don't think it's as common anymore, thanks to the movement of like health and fitness.
Good.
I think people are a lot more concerned about, you know, the how they feel instead of how they look. And I think that's a great movement that happened, that has influenced the modeling industry too. Designers as well, not choosing always the skinniest models, and a lot of steps, you know, the fashion industry has changed. I think it's not as common, but of course it happens.
Do you have any particular regimen for travel? Is there something you always have to carry with you? Whether it's something sentimental or just something as, you know, a neck pillow or whatever. Is there anything you must pack before a trip out of state or out of the country?
Not really, actually. I don't. I always have almonds with me. Does that count?
Almonds?
Yeah, because I don't know where I'm gonna go, and I don't know what kind of food there's gonna be, and I'm always hungry, so I always carry almonds, and they pass every security checkpoint.
Yeah,
like,
almonds are okay.
Pass, like snacks don't pass, especially Mexico and certain countries, they don't allow that. But almonds pass everywhere, so almonds. I always have almonds with me.
That's very funny. Do you carry on or check a bag generally?
For modeling, always carry on. Because you know, there's nothing worse than losing your suitcase. And I've learned the hard way, because I was on a shoot in Colombia, in Santa Marta. So getting there was extremely difficult. Like, I believe it was like a 2 or 3 hour drive from wherever I landed. And I had checked in a suitcase and it never arrived. So here I am in the middle of nowhere. Santa Marta doesn't even have a supermarket. You know, it's a very poor town, poor parts of Colombia. And I remember being stuck there, no razor, no toothbrush, no underwear. I was like, okay, I'm never checking in a luggage again.
Who finds these places to shoot in? Couldn't they have found a place that looks like the countryside of Colombia in, I don't know, Southern California? Who finds these places and says, we've got to, you know, travel 4 hours by car where there's no ATM and no pizza parlor and no drugstore?
To be honest with you, I'm so glad they do it, though, because I got to live amazing experience thanks to that. I believe photo shoot team want to find places are unique, you know, especially when you're shooting a campaign. You want a background. I mean, there's the typical backgrounds you see every time. And especially in Colombia, for example, the swimwear brand, it was Saha Swimwear, I remember, they really wanted to showcase the beautiful parts of Colombia. It's a Colombian brand. And it was important for them to include that in in the collection.
All kinds of lotions and potions and stuff to get through security?
Maybe you should ask other models, Rudy, because me, I always have my little kit, basics. First of all, once you get to a place,
as a makeup person, right?
Make your hair and makeup, so you don't need all that stuff. And and also, like, trust me, after
in the media, as I said in the introduction, the world of models, I mean, whether it's some, you know, reality TV show or just a fictional movie, models are always being whisked about in limousines, men or women. They're all good looking. They're all going to clubs that I can't get into. They're always drinking champagne and someone else is always paying. Does that sound like your life?
It sounds like a lot of the New York life I've seen before COVID, yes. I think you definitely have access to this. I have seen it. Have I been part of it? I guess in some ways, you know, but I've never liked it, especially the nightlife. And yes, of course, you get the limo and you get the promoters and the tables and the champagne bottles and you get all that stuff, but you also feel like the biggest product, the biggest purse you can possibly be. You know, they put you in a corner and just like be pretty and shake your head, you know, like it's not a world that I would say I love my job. I love modeling. I love what it brought to my life. But this is the worst part of it. Because
really?
you're reduced to it. And once you are reduced to it, it's very hard to get out of it. And then you're in those circles that I believe are not so good for you. Mm-hmm. And again, like I believe like it's a job like any other, okay? And being put on pedestals, we don't deserve it. We're no better than anybody else, okay? I believe my job is a job and I love my job. I feel part of, I love the teamwork. I love that I'm literally, the model in a picture is the last thing. There's tons of people working behind. There's all the photographers and the assistants, and it's so much more than just the model. So this whole world, yes, sure, you have access to it. Do I think it's a wonderful world? No. Did I get anything great come out of this? No. Did I lose myself in it? Probably a little bit. Would I recommend anybody to do it? No.
When did you come out of that? When you said you lost yourself, and when did you go, wait a minute, this is exhausting, and I'm going to look old before my time? And
yes, it was 3 years ago now. I completely stopped going out. Completely.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay.
It just a change needed to happen, and to be honest, I wasn't doing it all the time anyway. But I felt like it was becoming too much anyway. Like it's just not. I've seen too many things that.
Well, as I recall, when we met, the man who had broken up with you was in the nightlife business. I don't want to go into your private life, but I mean that would certainly require some spending nights out, I would think.
Well, that's why I was introduced to the.
That's how you were. I see.
Yes, that's
okay.
why.
Okay, when you fly on a job, let's say you have a job in Colombia, wherever, Greece. Do you fly coach? So they give you premium economy?
Yes.
First class?
Yeah, you fly coach. I mean, maybe some supermodels, I'm sure they get first class, but no, I was always flying coach, except with a few, if you book like big commercials, they'll fly you first class. It's part of the contracts.
I see. Okay. Melinda asks if you have a favorite article of clothing or pair of shoes. Okay, now we're talking importance of shoes that you've gotten to keep from a shoot. Do you ever get to keep anything?
Believe it or not, no, you never get to take the clothes. And the only thing is sometimes clients, they will send you afterwards, especially swimsuit clients have been very generous with me about sending me like after the shoot, like because you're shooting with samples. Mm-hmm. And so they take the samples back. But it's funny because very often people think like, oh, do you get to keep those clothes? But no, you don't. You don't.
That's a shame. I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry about that. Any traveling tips that because you travel so much, that you pass along to friends, or you can pass along to viewers of this webcast, that save you time, save you energy, get you through security faster, make life easier?
Well, then again, traveling with carry-on if you can. That avoids so much problems and the lines to check in your suitcase and everything. Then if you live in the US, if you can be TSA pre-check, it's wonderful. Mm-hmm. If you can get global entry, that's wonderful too. If international travel, whenever we can do that again, that saves a lot of time. And carry with you all your essential at all times. Like I always have like my little kit with like medicine and any first aid of any sorts, I always have with me. And then again, food, like it's just, I always think about having some healthy food with me because you never know where you're going to go and what you're going to get.
Right,
right. Who wants to pay $12 for a pack of almonds at the airport? Nobody. You get your Joe's, you get it for $4 and you put it in a Ziploc. I
carry cashews, and I just paid way over at the airport yesterday, actually. A last question. Well, Greg has a good question. How do you handle jet lag?
Oh, I don't think I do.
I don't think
I do. I've never found a solution for that, and it affects me every time. I don't have a solution. I think what I've noticed is to drink lots of water helps me. But truly, hey, if you have a solution, I can't wait to hear it because it's been a struggle.
I get asked the question a lot too, and I've tried everything, and particularly going over to Europe. It's not long enough to sleep, even if you are lucky enough to be in first class. And it's just, I don't know. It's just, I don't mind coming back during the day, but leaving at night, landing at 9 in the morning, around 2 in the afternoon, I I go face down on the table. Greg suggests melatonin. I'm sure you've tried it. I have too, Greg.
Yeah.
And this character Jaziel, I like this guy. First I saw, will you marry? I thought he was going to ask you to marry him. No, he says, will you marry? And when you do, will you raise your children speaking French as a first language?
I hope I get married one day, yes. And I believe I would speak French to my kids. But then it would depend where my husband's from. Because if we're speaking English at home, I would assume maybe it would feel natural that he understands what I tell the kids. So I don't know. Did you see I said kids? I see many. Woo! I don't even have a husband, but yay, kids.
Well, do you want? Well, I'm not going to ask you about your too much about your personal life. I already have. Well, I've so enjoyed talking to you, Deborah, and nice seeing you again, even if it is virtually. I hope business picks up for you and all of us, for that matter, particularly those in our audience. And thank you for spending time with us.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you guys for participating and asking questions. And thanks, Rudy. And good luck to everyone. Like, we're gonna get through this year. It's gonna be fun.
Bisu to you, and you can follow Deborah. I know on Instagram at Deborah Mace. You're not too active on Facebook, are you? Or
no,
are you?
I just have my private page for friends and family.
So mainly Instagram is where to follow you.
Yeah, mainly.
And this Deborah, traditional spelling, R-A-H. Oh, her name's up top there. You can see it, M-A-C-E. Deborah, thank you so much. Stay warm in New York, and again, thank you for taking time today.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye. Thought we might do a little bit of travel news before I say goodbye to you. Let me get to that on my other computer over here. First thing that I should tell you, if you fly United Airlines and care about their frequent flyer program, just about 1 hour ago, let's see if I can find it, they announced that, I'll find it. They announced an accelerated program for achieving elite status for the new year, for 2021. You know, they cut back the requirements this year to become silver, gold, platinum, 1K, whatever. And where is this one? It was before I started this, which was 1 o'clock, so it should be right down here. Yeah, we're making it easier to qualify for premier status. And I haven't read it very closely, so don't hold me to this. But the selling point of the email is you will earn 2 times the general amount of PQPs, whatever that stands for, I can never remember. Premier qualifying points, I guess, premier qualifying points, on your first 3 trips if you take them between January 1st and March of next year. So if you're having any European plans or long distance flights, try to make them on United if you are indeed collecting United points to become elite, because they're going to give you twice as much for your first 3 trips for the first 3 months of this year. Other travel news. Let's see. I did a link on my Facebook page on Rudy Maxa's World to this list of the 50 best bars in the world as judged by 23 judges whose tough job was to travel around the world drinking at bars. And the winner, the best bar in the world, is said to be the Connaught Bar. This is the Connaught Hotel in the Connaught Hotel in London. I've been to that bar, but I'm sure it was very nice, but a lot of London bars are nice. Anyway, the Connaught Hotel won first place. And Qantas, the Australian airline, shocked a whole lot of us who travel, even though I have no plans to go to Australia. They said they're suspending all flights between Australia and the United States and the United Kingdom until at least October of next year. That's 11 months away. Now, I think that's subject to change, just as so many things are during COVID-19. But I think that's fairly incredible. Now, if you are retired or you've got nothing better to do, or you can work from a remote location, there is a resort in the Maldives that for $30,000 to the month, so that's $1,000 a day, 2 of you can move in and stay there the whole month. That's a big reduction from the retail price, by the way. They'll throw in breakfast and 25% off any other meals and spa treatments. If you get my newsletter, you'll find a link to that in it. If you don't get my newsletter, go to maxatours.com and click to the bottom of the page and sign up. Or you can also go to tripsavvy.com and you'll see that. Also, if you missed the ranking in August of this year, Airbnb did a ranking of the countries and the states that have the most participants in their so-called enhanced cleaning program. So if you're thinking of renting a apartment, a treehouse, a houseboat, whatever on Airbnb, look for enhanced cleaning certified properties. And one piece of good news, Virgin has been working on a Hyperloop. Hyperloop are these things like pneumatic tubes that people will someday whoosh under the ground or over the ground through, magnetically levitated vehicles that look like pneumatic tubes. And there's magnets of opposite polarity at each end, and it can whoosh you through 600 miles an hour. Virgin completed its successful first test with 2 people in its test facility in Las Vegas this week. 2 people went 100 miles an hour for 500 meters. When it gets up and running, it probably won't be until the end of this decade. And presumably it'll be between LA and San Francisco or New York and Washington. You will be able to go between New York and DC in 29 minutes. How about take that, Amtrak? All right. That is the news from travel that I have for you this week. I thank you very much for joining. We'll do it again next week. Stick around. You can follow me on social media. You can go to Rudy Maxa at Instagram. And I still have a lot to go to get to Deborah Mace's numbers. So if you don't follow me on Instagram, please do, because I'm only at 3,000 and she's at 80,000. So, and again, you can go to YouTube and watch this interview by about tomorrow evening, or any of the past interviews we've had with folks like the actor Andrew McCartney, and all kinds of people. You'll see them there. Again, take care, travel safely. I'm going to be coming to you from London next week. Well, actually Brighton, outside of London, where my granddaughters are. I'm going to go over for a second visit in the last 2 months. I'll let you know how things are there when I get there. All right. Stay safe. Take care. Bye-bye.